while I make artwork that is all about color, composition. My focus is on workers. All of the projects that I've done over the last 10 years have been about farmers, mill workers, veterans, policemen, slaves. I work to relate to the common man. My family were farmers. They worked 24/7. They came from this country and built new lives, and what I'm interested in doing is telling their stories. I want to hear what they feel about it, and not so much what we think about their role in our culture, but really what inspires them to become firefighters and policemen and servicemen. And I think that the people who give their lives are not just workers, but they're the ultimate worker. They give more than their time and their effort and their sweat. They give something that's a little more special. All of the things that go into making a good piece of artwork, what really drives it is my passion for my subjects. And the most rewarding thing is when it brings about a response from someone whose lives have similar paths. I feel very strongly about that. I feel very passionate about it, and I often, when I'm making a drawing or painting, I find myself in it. It is, to me, the most fulfilling thing about making this artwork, and it's my little secret that I know that I was crying when I was looking at the faces of those mill workers as I drew them, and then those pieces are the ones that speak to the viewer. I started making artwork about textile workers about 10 years ago, and it was in response to the industry that I'd been working in for many years, going offshore and mills closing and people losing their jobs. I found that my focus was not so much on the industry itself, but on the people. They came from this country and built new lives, and those stories of immigrants are what I started to tell through my artwork. My work has evolved into a study of not just what I started with, textile workers, but my work has evolved into the study of workers in general. I found that making drawings and paintings of the workers themselves wasn't quite enough. So I wanted to show movement. I wanted to show what a day in the life of a textile worker was. I began to think about how I could make the work more interactive and how I could bring the viewer into the artwork itself and become a part of it and to experience what these factory workers experienced. The layering of my work is critical in creating not just a sense of depth and movement, but also you create a kind of illusion of past and present, a sense of camaraderie, people banding together. It isn't the kind of artwork that you look at and it's in your face. It's the kind of work that you need to walk around, look inside, and discover. I, whenever possible, interview the subjects because it's important to tell their story. So what I try to do is get a sense of why they are doing what they're doing and how they're doing it and what their goals are. Policemen, they want to help people. They have this strong sense of purpose in that they are learning about trust and camaraderie, friendship, service. They're not unlike soldiers and sailors. They're not only serving the public, but they're also satisfying what they feel is their purpose in life. What they're doing is something that they're passionate about. It's like why I paint. I want to share my interpretation of a subject or a community with the public. It's interesting because when I was working on the textile project, I started using gauze and fabric that was like the product that they were making at the mills, a very roughly hewn cotton weave that was the first kind of fabric that was made in the factories here in the U.S. When I did my project about tobacco farming, I used a fabric that was very much like the tents that covered the fields in the shade tobacco industry. When I worked on the slavery project, I used a kind of fabric that was very similar to what they call Negro cloth, which is what the mills wove and gave to the slaves to be able to make their clothing. When I was chosen to do the project at the Veterans Home, I had to reinvent my technique because I couldn't use textiles because of the flammability issues. So I am now working with glass to create that kind of illusion. One of the things that I'm doing is laminating fabric inside glass so that it does create the illusion of fabric without it becoming a flammable material. But I am also using other techniques on glass which are, to create different effects, etching and digital printing as well as gold leaf. So there are a variety of applications that I'm using to create these layered pieces. So as a viewer, you're creating part of the artwork. You become a part of the artwork and you create the shadow, you create the reflection. There's an evolution. The evolution of starting at the beginning and going to the end, and you can stop and you can keep going and you can speed up and you can slow down, you can look closer, you can step back, and all of this creates a whole other kind of three-dimensional effect with the layering. It's dynamic. It becomes a part of whatever that moment in time is that you're there, and that's it. You can go there the next day and have a different feeling. And really what I try to do is create environments that the viewer can become a part of the work. And what I think is really important is to not just learn about something and read about it and study it and practice it, but also feel it. And I hope that through this, I can create a sense of being in a space in time. I like to think that this will give them a more spiritual, emotional, personal feeling for what they might be getting into. In that regard, it fulfills my goal as an artist.